Everybody, welcome. It's Sunday, about 3 o'clock, and I'm Stacey Budge Camison with UrbanGypZ, and today I wanted to talk about lace and open space. And the main reason is because I've got a class coming up, and I wanted to kind of share with you guys a little bit about lace and open space. Um, Lace and open space is is something that I get a lot of questions about. And primarily, I know that you guys have been incorporating some of that, but at the same time, it's there's some technical stuff as far as like how to secure the open spaces and just little things that come up. And so I wanted to kind of address that, but in this class because lace and open space is a class that's coming up. Now, let me back up and tell you what I mean by lace and open space. Now, woven lace is a technique that I have found in some of the old school weaving books that I have, and I've kind of used them with some of my art weaving because it adds. There's some techniques you can use, and it works so good with like using art yarn and other like fibers from today. So we're going to go through some of that in that class. Anyway, so I wanted to kind of back up and show you some of the pieces where I've kind of explored using that open space and that lace, and so I'm going to share those with you. All right, so I'm going to start first with, I talk about lace, and if you saw the post announcing this live stream. This is a recent piece I did, and here's where I did a woven lace, and this is called Leno lace, and I'm gonna share with you how I do that in that class. But I love this, okay? Because you see it adds a little bit. It kind of opens up the texture a little bit. Now I use lace and woven lace as like a texture, because you see, I've got woven textures here, but I treat this area like a texture as well. It's not it comes across differently as this solid woven stuff, and it adds a third dimension. So I can have a piece where they're solid, and then you have stuff that's kind of coming outward, but the lace, when you use open space, that's going to draw your eye this way. So it adds like another dimension, and it turns your piece into something a little more sculptural. And also, I mean, you're kind of working with negative space. So let me show you this piece here. So here you can see I've used right here. All right, so I used, you're looking through this woven area where I've, did these cord wraps, and I did smaller sections. So it's giving, again, but it's adding some composition. Here I've got, I've got some other areas. I've got this grommet going on here. And then this adds some dimension because it's breaking up that horizontal line. So it's a great way to add like some contrast between your chunky spots, and it's adding that other dimension where you're looking through your piece, and it's kind of giving you another opportunity to add like a design element. Now me, I try not to weave stripes. I try to weave, let me see, like in this section, where the woven sections are all a little different. And by doing that, then I end up trying to break up the stripes. I try to break up the stripes with, little bits of locks, but if I have like an open space and I have it off center, then that's going to draw your eye in a diagonal. So I try to add diagonals as much as possible in the composition, even if it's just a wearable. Just because it's going to add a little interest. I mean, as a wearable, the stripes are going to break up anyway, but it just adds a little something else to it. All right, so Another thing to wait, let me show you another sample of here's another area. I mean, in this area, I don't know if you can see that through here. And it's not that I'm using a weaving technique as much as I'm loosely weaving to where you can see through the piece. So that's another thing you can do. And another, like, I don't know, some of you guys are in the Art Yarn Warps class, and that is outright using open space around your art yarn so you can see the texture of your art yarn. So that's another way that you can, that when you're using open space with your piece. All right, and again, it's, you know, because, okay, let me show you how to compare that. So here's a piece where I used art yarn in a dense fabric, right? So there's not as much open space there, and you can see the texture of the art yarn, but compare it to this, where there's open space, you know, woven, and so you're going to see that texture of the art yarn a little differently, and it's because of the negative space, and the negative space being the unwoven space in your piece. So that's an art thing to consider. Another thing that you kind of have to consider is, you know, I kind of try to keep that open space and lace stuff. Let me show you this piece, back to this piece again. You know, here, you know, I tried to keep it to where, you know, with the warp, I'm not using as wild of a warp here. So it's going to show up a little better. And it's kind of the same theory of if you're a knitter or a crocheter, how a lot of times if you use multicolored yarn, how a lot of times that kind of fights with if you're knitting like a lace project. So a lot of times it's better to use not as much contrasty or patterny hand-dyed yarn, because then that's going to give you, it's going to show off your lace a little better. So I try to be mindful of that and just treat the section as a texture in and of itself. And try to keep the interest, you know, because sometimes you can throw a lot of things like the hand-dyed yarn and knitting technique, weaving techniques into one piece, but sometimes it's better to just pull back and let each technique be, you know, speak in that one place, and then that way it doesn't get too jumbled. You know, here, let's see, you know, here I'm doing a similar thing. You know, I have this one area where I'm doing that clasped weft. I have a class on this. I'll post a link to the clasped weft as well as the art yarns class that I have. But, you know, if I were to add a texture in here, then that's gonna hide a lot of the detailing of that clasped weft interest there. So that's, oh look, here's another open space. You know, and it turns into a design. Oh, it's actually this side. A design element, because I also have it in contrast with this part right here, which is, you know, dimensionally standing out this way, whereas here your eye's drawn through the piece. All right. So when you're working on a piece, I mean, a lot of times you need to consider, if you're working on a wall hanging, I mean, what you're going to see through that space is going to be your wall, right? So you have to consider that. But a lot of times if you're doing a wearable, you know, when you put that on, what you're seeing is whatever's going to be your garment, or maybe part of the weaving itself. So that's something to consider, that if you're weaving, you know, an open space, how is it going to be seen? Is it going to be seen flat against the wall, or is it going to be seen, you know, as a texture within your wearable piece? So those are things to consider. All right. So that's kind of where I am with space and open lace. I mean, there's so many different ways that you can do it. I mean, like I said, there's this traditional way. There's ways to do loose weave. There's ways to have intentional spaces, you know, that form a composition like waves and just windows and stuff like that. So this is stuff that I'm going to be covering in this class, okay? So the Lace and Open Space class, registration's now live. And the class it's open for pre-registration. The class will drop, it'll go live on October 30th. And if you use the code PRESALE, PRESALE, and I'll post that in the show notes as well as the link to that class. If you use that code it's good through October 29th. So the day before the class goes live, up until when the class goes live. Once I put the class live there, I'm taking the pre-sale down. So if you use the code pre-sale, you get 20% off of the cost of the class. So, and what we're going to be covering is, you know, I'm going to go into more detail about how to use that open space, that three-dimensional aspect of using open space and lace in your piece, be it for a wall hanging or for a wearable. So we're going to talk a little bit about art theories on the sculptural aspects of it. I'm going to give 2 examples of woven lace. I'm going to show you, and those are pulled from those weaving books that I have. It's just some old school stuff that I've designed. I've kind of taken them and revamped them to use things like art yarn. So we're also going to talk about different methods for using space and open lace and 2 different theories, like if you're going to leave space in your warp, or also going to answer some of the questions that I've gotten about. And the biggest question I've gotten has to do with securing your space. I mean, there's theories behind not securing it, and I'm going to talk about, you know, why you wouldn't secure it and what that effect would be. And I'm also going to look at ways to secure to make sure that space stays consistent, even if you're using a wearable. So then that way, you know, as the wearable shifts around, you're not going to have that drift and lose that open space. So we're going to look at some techniques as far as that goes. And I'm also going to talk about construction ideas, because there's also ways that you can use open spaces, weave those spaces into your piece and use those as construction elements for things like garments and home deck stuff. So we're going to look at different ideas for using that. Anyway, so that's what's going on with space and open lace and open space classes. That's coming up, and I'm really excited because there's so many different things, and it's kind of going to add that other dimension. I mean, I love art weaving and adding in texture, but this adds like a negative texture to your piece, and it adds just that little bit more of dimension, and there's so many possibilities as far as that goes. You can do so many things with open spaces in your weaving. Okay, so I'm not going to be doing a weaving demo today, but I am going to answer questions. So if anybody has any questions, then hit me up. And I wanted to say hi to Epiphany London, that's Sue, right? Sherry, Kathy, Blue Scoop, I don't know your name, Blue Scoop, and L&D Pegram. Pegram? I'm sorry if I'm slaying your name. I don't mean to. Anyway, thanks for joining. I'm glad you guys are here. So if you have any questions, I'm going to give it a minute. Let me see if I can show you some more of these pieces. Let's see. Yeah, here's some areas where I use the open spaces. This is a big long piece that I wove. Wait, here. You can see some of that. Oh, and here's like an unwoven place. I love that spot right there. Let's see. All right. Let's see, and then this piece, yeah, this is the one that I had on that picture. This is this I actually wove on a Sayori loom at a workshop, which was great fun. All right, here's some loosely woven stuff. what else. What is the warp on the piece with the lone lace? This piece? This one maybe? This warp, I want to say that this is, I think this is the piece you're talking about, Sherry. This piece, this was, since this was woven on a Sayori loom, this was pre-wound, but I want to say that another weaver warped this loom. It was this, so when I sat down at the workshop, this is what was on the loom. But I want to say that this was, I think it's like a bunch of different cotton and rayon and white and off-white colors. So but it was something that they had. I want to say the lino lace. Lino lace? Is that what you're talking about? This one? Yeah, because that's where the lino lace is there, right? So yeah, this warp is really just what they had already had on the loom, but I want to say it's just like a weaving yarn from, and I don't see anything wild in there. It's really a bunch of different weights of, let me see if I can pull a section there and hold that up. I want to say, here, let's, if you can see that section, it's just a bunch of different weights of cotton and maybe rayon and linen, white and off-white weaving yarns. If we were signed up for Beyond the Basics, do we need to sign up separately for lace and open space class? Sorry, I can't remember. No, Marilyn, you do not need to register for that sign up for that class. What you'll get is, if you're part of the Beyond the Basics class, which is not open for registration, but people who have purchased that within the last 5 years, that yes, this is included with that class that you bought. So when the class goes live on October 30th, then just like the other classes, if you scroll all the way down to the bottom of the lessons, there's going to be the access tickets where you click on the link and it gives you the free seat access for those classes. So yes, don't sign up. And I try to catch, in case somebody does accidentally sign up, I try to catch that and issue a refund. I'll usually try and go through the interface and double check that. All right, let's see who else is here. Blue Scoop, Phyllis. Oh, hey, okay. Blue Scoop is Phyllis. Hi, Phyllis. Thanks for joining. And Sherry and Amanda. Hey, Amanda, glad you could join us. And Wayne. Hi, Wayne. Thanks for coming back. Yes. Okay. Yay. Awesome. All right. So it's going to be kind of short today. Oh wait, I was going to show some of these other pieces. Yeah, this is that piece that I shared with you guys in Vlogmas. I'll put a link to the Vlogmas from 2 years ago where I made this piece. And this is one where I had a wild warp. Here's an open space. You can kind of see I used 6 different kinds of yarns, but they weren't all the same color. They were a little different, but they were mostly neutrals. There's a lace spot right there, the lino lace. And then this piece, there's not really any lace on here. Well, there is one area here, but it's not really lace. It's a technique called what is it called? Collapsed warp or weft, where and if I ever get to where I can master this technique, I'll share it. You can see where you weave it in a way, and this is done on a 4-shaft loom. You weave it in a way to where you get these drop spaces and floats. But I love this piece. Let's see, I don't think I have any lace spaces on this one. There's some clasped weft. Oh wait, yeah, there's some lace right there. You see, and it's a little harder to see on this one. I mean, it's a little monochromatic, but there's a lot of texture going on right there, so the lace gets a little lost. Anyway, so those are the pieces. Oh wait, there's one more. This is a piece I wove at the beach. See, and there's a big old unwoven space. Of course, it gets twisted. Let's see if I can twist it back. All right, so yeah, this is a piece that I wove at the beach. I think this side, and then I embellished it with shells that I found beachcombing. So I love this piece. Anyway, all right. So otherwise, that's what I got for you today. Next week I'll probably do some more weaving on the little loom, and that's about it. So if there aren't any other questions, then I'm gonna sign off and keep it a little short today. But thanks for everybody for joining, and again, I'll put links in below for the stuff that I mentioned, and especially for that lace and open space class. Because it's going to be fun. There's going to be a lot of fun stuff to it. All right, so if that's it, I am going to sign off. If you have any other questions, then either leave them in the comments of this video or ask them in the Fiber Art Collective, or just shoot me an email and I'll answer it personally. And if you like this video, give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment, or share it with your friends. All right, so that's it. I will see you guys next week. Bye.